everyone, welcome back to my channel. Thank you so much for tuning in. Today I thought I'd do another day in the life vlog. A lot has gone on recently actually, much more than happened over the entirety of lockdown, which seems to have ended now. So I thought I'd give you a little update and let you know what I've been getting up to and then kind of bring you along to everything that I'm doing today, just around the house. Today is a rest day for me, so I will be doing no running, but I will be talking a little bit about running because what else do I do on here? This last week has been fun because Rhian and I have properly started looking for places to live. We will be moving back to Bristol, which is where we met when we both were at university there. Rhian did his undergrad and PhD there, and I just did my undergrad there, so we were there together for 3 years. We've started looking at houses. If you know Bristol at all, south of the river, it's way more affordable than anywhere north of the river, and that is kind of our current exciting thing that's going on. It feels nice because at a time when it kind of feels like I've done nothing in the last few months, I guess 4 months, I feel like I haven't even really got going this year, if I'm perfectly honest. It's nice to be feeling like I'm taking positive steps in my life to actually kind of move on to the next chapter, if that makes sense. And certainly living for 4 months under the same roof as Rhian and his family, I've realised, you know, I really want a space for us two together. It's extremely exciting to be able to do that now. So I will be out of Dorset, out of London and into Bristol, kind of in between the two, not really, but that is the goal. And last week we looked at our first houses there and we didn't like any of them, but it was really fun to go and have a look, and we feel immensely lucky to be able to do that. And also it was our first drive over like 10 minutes long in the whole of, well, since we went into lockdown. So that was exciting. A 2-hour drive just for funsies to Bristol and back, and yeah, it was nice to get out and actually talk to people because I swear to God, I am going mad and my ability to speak English is like declining pretty damn quickly. Thankfully, I've been reading a very interesting book recently about, yeah, it's kind of like a little book review, I guess, because I've been sharing a lot about it on my Instagram, and I've been reading this book here, Behave by Robert Sapolsky. It is fascinating. I studied biology at uni and I did a module on neuroscience, which obviously covered bits of psychology and why we behave like how we behave. And this book goes into a lot of that, and it also goes into the evolutionary biology aspects of it. So there's a lot of anthropology in there, the beginning of the history of man, you know, when we were hunter-gatherers versus when we started to do agriculture and cultivate crops and animals and all that kind of stuff, and how that influences our societies today. So like, for example, individualistic cultures like America and to an extent Britain, and then more communal cultures like East Asia and all of that kind of stuff, and how our mentality varies between those two places, and also obviously every shade of grey in between. It is honestly one of the most interesting books I've ever read, and like, you read a paragraph and you're like, oh my god, that's why we do that. And a lot of it's also incredibly confusing. I would say that the first couple of paragraphs are dense. I mean, I'm only halfway through and I've been reading it since the beginning of lockdown. It is 750 pages of pretty intense biology, I guess. So if you don't have a background in biology, they do have a couple of appendices that you can read to get a little bit of insight into the way that the brain works, the way that neurons work, what synapses are, you know, that kind of stuff. And it just makes the rest of the book a little bit easier to understand. But it is pretty dense, especially at the beginning. But at the same time, like, if you don't understand that, that's still kind of fine. You just like read the rest of the book because it's still really interesting. So yeah, I would thoroughly recommend that. If you liked Steven Pinker, Angels of Our Nature, is that what it's called? The one on violence, then you would really like this. If you liked Sapiens, you'll really like this. Those are the only two like similar books that I can think of, but I'm sure there are millions of others that are also really good. That is my book review of the day. Going back to houses, today's vlog is sponsored by Smart Energy GB, which is very relevant to the houses that we're looking at, because one thing that we are looking at with our houses is how eco-friendly they are, because obviously it's all well and good trying to pay less money for a house, but if you're then having to spend a huge amount of money on bills every single month, and all your electricity or your heating is going out through drafts in the window, then eventually you end up actually spending a whole lot more money. And that's something that I've become very conscious of during lockdown as well, because obviously we're spending so much more time in the house. Rhian and I are both freelance or self-employed, so we already work at home a lot, but I'm sure a lot of you guys will have been moving all your work to home, and everyone's energy expenditure is kind of like whoop through the roof, probably literally. That means that we all should be a little bit more conscious of how much energy we're using, and Smart Energy have challenged me to give you guys 5 tips of things that I do to try and save more energy, and that really helps obviously both to reduce costs but also protect the environment, which is something that I'm very passionate about. So without further ado, I'm going to give you my 5 tips to save energy in the house. Okay, so my first tip is kind of relevant to all of them in a way, but it's basically making this a habit, and I talk a lot about this in the context of running, but it's also important in everyday swaps you make in your life to be more sustainable or reduce costs. That goes for things like turning off lights as soon as you walk out of a room. I used to live with someone who literally forgot every time she walked out of a room. No matter how many sticky notes you put on the doors, she would always forget. And I think it's something that once it becomes a habit, you don't even think about it. You know, you walk into a room, you turn a light on. You don't even have to think like, oh, I need to turn the light on when I walk into this room, and it should be exactly the same when you walk out. It's the same with things like washing your clothes. Washing things on a lower heat protects the environment. It also protects your clothes. They often last longer, and it reduces your costs as well. Once you know a wash that can work for you that's sort of 30 degrees, then that's a good thing to do every single time. You don't have to think about it, and that reduces the amount of energy your brain has to use to create to do that every single time. So you've created a habit. Things like turning your TV off standby, not keeping your laptop on all the time or your desktop on all the time. All of these things are relatively small changes, but when they're added up together, they can actually make a big difference. And once you've made a habit of it, it's so much easier to do every single time. The next one is something that I did when I moved into my flat in London about 18 months ago, and that was switching all halogen or incandescent bulbs to LED lighting. It may seem like, you know, what's the difference? Why does it make a massive change? Well, LED lighting is so much more efficient than halogen lighting. When we switched all of our bulbs, previously I've been told that they would run out, you know, they would die within like a year or 2 years, whereas LED lights can last 15 times longer, so you're not going to have to change them frequently, so that's obviously a benefit in and of itself, but also they can use up to 90 times less energy. So when it comes to saving energy around the house, that's something that has major benefits, especially if you've got a lot of lights in your house that maybe are not the most efficient bulbs that you can use. So yeah, that's a really good one to do, and it's something that you can literally do tomorrow. LED lighting isn't crazily expensive, and when you factor in that they last 15 times longer, you have to buy far fewer of them and you save money in the long run, which is obviously very important. So that's my second tip. I would definitely say that's one of the most important things that you can do around the home. Third one, related to food, of course, is to steam or pre-cook your vegetables or anything that you're cooking in the microwave rather than boiling it. Boiling uses a lot of energy, and if you've got a smart meter, then you will be able to see, like, every time you turn the kettle on, the amount of energy you're using per minute increases significantly. And yes, the kettle doesn't take that long to boil, but if you're boiling a full kettle, you're doing that several times a day, or, you know, several times for a meal, then you're using a huge amount of energy. By using the microwave, that actually uses a lot less energy, and this is something that, for me, because I love sweet potato fries, very important. One of my best recommendations for making sweet potato fries and making it a lot quicker, I chop them up into chips, stick them in the microwave for 5 to 6 minutes until they're soft. You should be able to prod a fork through them after tossing them in oil and herbs and spices. Then you stick them in the oven, and they take so much less time to cook. You can obviously do that through boiling them, but it uses more energy and it takes more time. It's a win-win sticking it in the microwave instead. That's something I'd thoroughly recommend. And also, on that note about boiling the kettle and how much energy it takes up, only boil the amount of water that you need for your tea or your coffee. Again, it saves time because boiling a full kettle takes a huge amount of time compared to boiling only 1 cup of water in a kettle. Again, this is something that really irritates me when other people boil a full kettle for literally just 1 cup. You don't need to do it. It takes up time, takes up energy, and it costs money. So yeah, it's a lose-lose-lose. So only boil the amount of water in the kettle that you actually need. Okay, so the next tip, my tip number 4, is a bit of a strange one to be thinking about now, I guess, because it's coming up to the hottest part of the year, although you wouldn't believe it looking outside. It's literally like it's grey and raining. So it's pretty grim. Draft proof your home in the summer, autumn time before you get to winter, so that when winter kicks in, you'll have to put on your heating way later, and when you do put on your heating, the heat retains itself in the house rather than getting out through drafts. Again, this was something that I did as soon as I moved into my flat, because I moved in January, and I could literally feel the wind coming through the windows even though they were shut. And yeah, it's a really old building, so it can sometimes be more difficult in buildings, in old buildings, but by getting things like double glazing and new windows, you can actually save a huge amount of energy and costs as well over that time. So that is something that I'd thoroughly recommend. It made a massive difference for us, and our energy bills went down, you know, within a matter of months. So that's something that I'd thoroughly recommend, and there are loads of different ways of doing it. Even just like buying draft excluders can help. Okay, the next one is especially relevant to us house hunting at the moment, to use natural light as much as possible. Again, this relates to having efficient light bulbs and not turning your lights on when you don't have to, but if you've got lots of natural light and if you've got good light within the house, then you don't have to turn on your lights, you know, as much as if you had quite a dark room, quite a dark house. Obviously, the way that your house is set up is kind of fixed. It's not really something you can look at that much, but by keeping your windows clean, you get more light through them, which means that you don't have to turn on the lights as frequently. This is something that is something to think about, I guess, if you're looking to move to a new place. I always think that one of the most important things, when Rhian asked me what the most important thing for me was when looking for a place, for me it was getting lots of natural light. I just can't live in dark houses, and we found an amazing house when we went to go look, but it was just so dark all the way through, and it was a really sunny day and it was really dark in the centre of the house. I just thought, this is so miserable. You'd have to have the lights on throughout the day, and obviously that's not very eco-friendly, but also it would be very expensive to have the lights on all the time. So yeah, keeping your house filled with natural light rather than just artificial light from your light bulbs is a good thing to do, and something to think about, I guess, if you're looking for a new place to live or thinking about the structure of your house and whether you want to put in like skylights and all that kind of stuff. I hope you found those helpful. If you have any other energy saving tips, obviously put them below. One thing that I love about the idea of a smart meter is it just kind of makes you a little bit more conscious of what you're doing. I think it's quite easy because energy isn't something that we can see, and because bills don't come in until after we've used the energy, sometimes you can kind of just forget energy is money, but also energy is bad for the environment for the most part. Oh, and switch to a renewable energy provider if you can. It is a great idea, and I've got a blog post on that, so go and check that out. Let's get on with my day. This morning I had a piece of toast for breakfast and a coffee, obviously. Today, although it is incredibly grey and gross outside, I'm going to try and get some gardening in, because I haven't really been spending very much time outside recently because it has just been pouring with rain continuously. The fact that it's not raining very much at the moment is a good sign that I should be getting outside and maybe doing some gardening, and I've got lots of exciting bits of the garden to show you, so yeah, I'll bring you around with me. Now I know probably no one cares that much about the veg patch, but I just thought we should all appreciate how green it has got. Tomatoes in the middle there that are probably about 5 foot tall now, with some massive tomatoes on. I'll show you in a sec. Lots of cabbages, we got some squashes down at the front, kale is the purple bit in the middle. Over the left we've got either courgettes or squash, I can never tell. Some beans to the far left on that pole there, rhubarb round at the back, a lot of ferns growing up somehow, and loads more types of bean there, and a little aubergine at the front that I planted, one of the first things I planted, and still one of the smallest things there. But it is doing so much better than I ever thought that it would do, so I'm very pleased with that. It's my first ever veg patch. Now looking into the tomato plant, we got a massive tomato. It's a plum tomato, so it's not really supposed to be very big, and an even massiver one that looks like a little pear or something. And then we've got some cherry tomatoes in here. Literally can't find them. Some nice, we're gonna get loads more because we've got flowers everywhere. They are hidden, but there they are. Can't wait to eat those. I bet we will have moved out by the time they ripen. And a nice big one at the back. This is my original tomato plant that I planted. A little bit smaller, but doing really well. And it's got a bunch of flowers, which means we're going to be getting tomatoes. I might be the only person excited by this. There's something very satisfying about having a veg patch, that's for sure. These are our yellow raspberries. This one's ripe actually, I think I'll pick that. They might not look ripe, but they're the same as any raspberry, just yellow. Oh my god, that's so good. Another one down there. I'll save that for someone else. This plant came all the way back from Bristol with Rhian, and it's been planted down here. Maybe we'll take it back to Bristol when we go. Chickens are in the coop today. Hello! Lunch is wholemeal toast with tomato paste and Morrison's vegan cheese. Morrison's do their own brand vegan cheese now and it's really good. This is the garlic and chive one, super good. With sun-dried tomatoes, a piece of homegrown sourdough, homemade sourdough, with some lettuce and hummus, and one piece of homegrown kale for the health, and of course a coffee. Another coffee. Next activity of the day, I'm going to make some lemon drizzle cake. This is one of the recipes on my blog. It's also one of Rhian's favourites, so I just thought I'd give it a go. Haven't baked in ages and I quite fancy it. So I'm going to do that now. Spend my afternoon doing that. Great thing about working freelance is I can still reply to emails whilst I'm making cake. Okay, so for the recipe I've got margarine, caster sugar, we'll get some almond butter in a sec, unwaxed lemon, self-raising flour and some non-dairy milk, and then we're gonna get going. We have a few different types of flour in here because I ran out of self-raising and we've got this other flour that I have no idea what it is. So we've got about 150 grams of self-raising and then 100 grams of what I can only assume is buckwheat flour, and then put in some baking powder as well to make sure that that all rises properly. Okay, so the lemon drizzle is in the Ray-Ban, and in the interest of saving energy, because they take quite a lot of energy, we are baking multiple other things. So Rhian's dad is making some bread. I'm going to make some oat biscuits. Because I don't bake very often, when I do bake, I try and make a whole load of stuff at once, and then I'll end up eating it like throughout the next week. Maximum. It never lasts very long, but I hope the lemon drizzle will last long, and if we get biscuits as well then we can have those at lunchtime and stuff. I kind of tend to have biscuits after every lunch now. It's like a habit that I've got into at lockdown, and honestly I love it. It's one of my favourite things, a nice little mid-afternoon snack. So I'm gonna make some oat biscuits, choc chip oat biscuits, if I can find any chocolate. Yeah, just stick those in with the lemon drizzle as well. They'll take a lot less time, so I've done the lemon drizzle first and then I can stick these in and hopefully they'll be finished around the same time. Of course, you can find the recipe for the choc chip oat cookies on my blog. This one I did in 2017. It's still one of my favourites. I made a lot of them at the beginning of lockdown, and you can stick in basically anything and they never go wrong. So I am using up loads of ingredients that are not necessarily on this list, but basically things that I need to use up. So that unknown flour, lots of nuts that I want to put in there, some oats, some huile, various things, and hopefully they'll turn out good. RIP whole peanut butter, that lasted us maybe 2 weeks. The lemon drizzle is done. You wait until the skewer comes out clean, and then I'm doing this because obviously the drizzle needs to go on top, and then this makes it go through the top few layers. This is always an interesting bit because it doesn't always go that well, but it always tastes good, so it doesn't really matter what it looks like. So this is just icing sugar and lemon. There you go. And I've used here, this is reusable baking parchment. This one's for a loaf tin, but then I've also got the flat ones as well for the biscuits. I would thoroughly recommend getting these. They cost barely anything and mean that you don't have to continually buy baking parchment that then you have to throw out after each use. So this, you can get them from Amazon, you can get them from baking stores, you can get them from all sorts of cookery places. They're really common now and they are so good. Okay, I'm just waiting for the cake downstairs to properly cool before I can eat some. And I've just been sent this documentary by Red Bull. It's called Way of the Wild Card, I think. And it's about an ultramarathoner called Mira Rai from Nepal. And it's about, well, I haven't actually watched it yet, but I think it's like how she started, how she trains and all that kind of stuff. I've watched 1 minute 27 and I already want to go for a run. Come and watch it with me.
Trail running is really, really tough. Incredible athletes, the best runners in the world.
I wish you all very, very, very good luck.
I'm gonna finish watching that now. I'm gonna link it down below so that you guys can watch it if you want. I think it's a series, so I think they've got some other athletes in there as well that you can go and see do their thing. If you don't find it motivational, I don't know what's wrong with you, because I've watched all of 2 minutes now, and yeah, it's pretty cool. It makes me want to go on the hills and the mountains, the trails here that feel like mountains sometimes, but I'm gonna finish watching it and then go and eat some cake. Okay, so I've been spending the last hour or so answering interview questions and just replying to emails, like that kind of stuff, and of course getting distracted looking at whether any new houses have been added today, which they haven't. It's all very boring. But I promised that I'd mow the lawn today, so that's my fun afternoon activity, and then I think we're going to go for a walk just to get in some activity today. Obviously when I'm doing rest days I tend not to, like, I don't go overkill. I know that I'm supposed to be resting, so I don't like do loads, but today it's a nice chilled one. Lawn mowing and then a walk, which should be very fun. Managed to do the lawn mowing just in time before it started pouring rain, which it is still doing now, so kind of perfect timing. Now the grass will get even greener. It is the end of the working day. I'm just going to finish up replying to a couple of the interview questions that I had. I was in Women's Health yesterday, which was also very exciting, talking about trail running around Dorset and sharing one of my favourite routes around here. And I have noticed that over lockdown there have been a couple more interviews and podcasts and that sort of stuff, because obviously people can't see each other face to face, so doing things via Zoom or via email, just like interviews, is like one of the best ways of interacting with people, I guess. So I've noticed an uptick in that, which is really fun actually. I quite enjoy doing those. Just gonna have a chilled afternoon. I'm gonna wait for the rain to stop and then gonna head out on a walk and then sit down for a nice early dinner, I think. Yeah, so it should be nice. But first, just gonna finish this up and wait for the rain to stop. Rhian found us some wild cherries. I'm going for the darkest one.
Of course.
Oh, they're a bit tall. I like our wild foraging walks. We always come back with something.
Those are proper ones.
Oh, yummy. We're just doing our normal walk of the town. Village. And this is a real tennis court, as in like real tennis, not real tennis. It's an old-fashioned form of tennis. Henry VII used to play tennis here, so that is your fun fact about Woolwich. Thank you. Lovely, all good. Kedgeree.
Homegrown cabbage.
With homegrown cabbage. It's good stuff. With Bob Ross. You can see my handiwork on the lawn. Okay, yeah, there's like a gap there. This didn't have any grass on it just a few weeks ago, and now it's like almost like a proper lawn. Dessert is Morrison's own vegan ice cream, homemade cookies, and a sneaky little slice of lemon drizzle as well. Not bad. And then off to bed. Actually, we're gonna eat this whilst watching something. That is all for this vlog. Thank you so much for watching. I'm gonna hop into bed and eat my very delicious dessert. I stuck in some granola as well. Disclaimer, it's going to be very good. Thank you for watching, and also thanks to Smart Energy GB as well for sponsoring this video. If you haven't checked out smart meters, do go and check them out, because I think that's such a great idea, and it's definitely something we'll be looking for in the house that we get, just to be a bit more conscious about the energy we consume. And of course I think we should all be doing that a little bit more. If you did enjoy this video, please do give it a big fat thumbs up and hit the subscribe button and tell your friends and share on social media, because it is all very helpful for me and allows me to create more content for you guys as well. I'll probably be back running in next week's vlog, but I thoroughly enjoyed my rest day today and it was very much needed after yesterday's run. I will see you next week. Thanks again for watching. Bye!